Hey, this is ADV Trust, and we're headed out to Bodie, Aurora, the old ghost town of Masonic, and a trip up to Belfort at the base of Mt.Patterson. Well, not at the base, it's kind of near the peak, 1,000 feet or so. So the group met in the Bay Area. We all caravanned over to Bridgeport with a couple destinations in mind. We were camping 2 nights. One night was going to be out in the desert near Bodie, and then the other night was going to be up at Belfort, which is about 1,000 feet below the peak of Mt.Patterson. And if you haven't been out in this area, it is cool. There's plenty of places to wheel, lots of gold mining history, other types of mining besides gold, and also timber, lots of American or early people's history. Now, we were camping up at Mt.Patterson on day 2, and a little bit below the peak in kind of a less windy area at the ghost town of Belfort. And there's actually a group of trees kind of at the base that you can camp at, and a couple old cabins, log cabins to check out, and where the arrow's pointing is where we actually set up camp. And if you zoom out a little bit, you can see that there's actually some cool stuff, and the road does go through. Unfortunately, at this time, it was snowed in, so we couldn't kind of do the full loop. But you can kind of see on the left the old mill pond or stamp mill pond. And then if you zoom out, you can kind of get a bird's eye view of the area that we were at and exploring. If you have a minute, smash that like button and subscribe. So day 1, we were out headed to our first night camp, and along the way, when you're out there, I'll post a GPX file, but there's old tailing piles, old mining sites, and if you're smart enough to grab a map, an old historic map before you go out there, it'll really enrich the experience. Just be careful, there are a lot of old pit mines out there and other things, but this was an old mine that was out along the road. You can just kind of pull out and have an explore around. Again, be careful, you know, these buildings aren't safe. There are old pit mines around. Yet barring all the safety precautions, there's still a lot of old equipment out there. Some of this equipment, I don't even know what it was used for. So if you have an idea, put it in the comments down below. And this is just kind of a look over the remains of the mine that we were out looking at. One of the cool things about this structure is the old boiler was still in the building, so that was kind of neat to see. So we left this site and went over to Masonic. Now again, Masonic is another old ghost town in the area. Not a lot of structures left in Masonic. I think kind of the highlight here in this area is the old tramway that kind of bridges the valley peaks. And you can, as you're going up to it, you can look across the canyon and see the cable structure, the tramway head across the canyon. And there's actually still some old cable that's on the ground. So really the thinking is that they were also mining on that side and then dropping the gold over. And then if you look, there's some carving in the rock, which used to be the old stamp mill. Of course, all that's gone now, but it's still kind of fun to have an explore around and check out some of the old sites. And then leaving Masonic, we headed to our first campsite, which was really just a big open grassy field in the middle or at the top of a valley. And again, that'll be noted in the GPX file, but a really pretty location. Waking up the next day, we headed out to Bodie, which if you haven't been there and you're out in California, it's worth the stop. It's definitely worth the drive. It was a very large gold mining town in its heyday, and the state has left it as a living ghost town. And it's one of those things that I've been to Bodie a lot, and it's one of those things where every time I go, I always see something different. And if you're into early California history, mining history, and even photography, great place to go. Lots of things to take photos of and learn about the early California mining history. So from Bodie, you can head out and go to Aurora. Now again, Aurora is an old, nothing really standing there now, but a pretty big area to explore. There is a small cemetery up there. That's kind of neat to have a ramble around. And the road is a little rough going up to Aurora, so definitely, and like any trip out to the desert, highly recommend that you have good tires and be sure to have your air pressure down. And the road going to Aurora is a little challenging, like, and there was this one, you know, kind of rickety bridge that we had to go across, and I was like, what is this? But all totally fine and a great adventure. And then from Aurora, then we started to head out for our second camp night, which was going to be about 1,000 feet below the peak of Mt.Patterson. Now the road going up to Belfort is rough. It's pretty rocky. Again, good tires, aired down, are a must. And again, the grade going up to Belfort is pretty steep, so it was definitely a learning curve for me with the 4Runner in order to keep the transmission temps healthy. So 4 low is your friend, not only going up but also coming back down. So shout out to Jason and Ro from the Overland Bound team for helping me learn that little trick. And if you're headed up this way, just know that at the peak, again, you're at about 10,000, 11,000 feet. So just be prepared for changes in weather. And then up at Belfort, and again, there were a couple mining towns on the way up to Belfort. So if you have an old map, it'll definitely show you them. So it's worth to have an explorer around up there and see what sites you can find. We then headed off the mountain. Everyone made it safely off the mountain, met up, chit-chatted a bit, and everybody got in their rigs for their long drives back to their home. And if you look in the distance there, you can see the peak of Mt.Patterson. Until next time, this is ADV Tress out. See you down the trail.